Hold on. Come on. There it is.
Welcome to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 205 of The Joy of Coding. My name's Mike Conley. It's been a little while. How's everyone doing? It's been a couple of weeks. I've been away. I was traveling. Now I'm back. So good to see you. And if this is your first time, hello, welcome. Welcome to the stream. What is... I don't know if you saw that. There's like some green screen glitchiness just now. I don't know if the waving caused that. Very interesting. Very interesting. I have a feeling I need to iron my green screen. Yeah, that there's like a lighting effect that'll occur if I like move my head in a certain way. Maybe I just move it back a little. Maybe that'll be better. I'm getting like, oh, that's worse. Oh well. Let's just forge ahead, shall we? Here's my screen, and here's the whoopsie daisy. Here's the agenda. Today is February 12th, 2020. It's episode 205. Just as a reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I only kind of know what I want to do today. I've got a sense of it. Things might go horribly wrong. Things might go right, things might go wrong. Who knows? This stream is unplanned, unscripted, and I might get stuck, rabbit holed. Who knows what'll happen today? I might forget to, for example, plug in my laptop, like I just realized. So I'm going to plug that in now. We're just going to figure it out as we go. That's the sort of the charm. The charm of the stream is how rough it is, unedited. So that's one thing. The second thing is the agenda that we're looking at is something you have access to. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description down below for a link to the agenda. That's what this thing's called. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, check out the handouts section to my right. And if you're watching this as part of the Twitch folks watching the Twitch stream on the Twitch chat, then I just dropped a link inside of the Twitch chat for you to this agenda. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that there is an episode guide. Believe it or not, there is an episode guide. It's completely viewer-driven, completely sort of viewer-contributed, or viewers contribute to this episode guide. It's basically, if you're new to the stream. Here, let me open it up. I moved my browser over. That's what happened. If you are new to the stream maybe and you want to know what happened in previous episodes, you might be interested in the episode guide. And this episode guide goes all the way back to episode 1. There are some missing episodes here and there, but it does a pretty good job. And if you go into each of these, you'll get things like the sort of topics I covered, maybe some of the neat things we did, like back here in episode 200. I initialized a Rust project. I was solving an advent of code. It was episode 200, and I was eating spicy food. I had forgotten about that. It was December 4th, 2019. And so there are links to the episode and the agenda. So the episode guide's pretty useful, if you want to know what happened in a previous episode. And it's also something that you can contribute. If you yourself have addenda, notes, things that you want to expand upon, maybe corrections, you can send me a pull request to the repository where the agenda is or the episode guide is hosted on GitHub. And if you're not sure what I mean by a pull request or repository, there's a guide down here that Smurf D, who is like the primary contributor to the episode guide, he used and recommends. There's also like a full-blown contributing guide here that you can follow. And one of the things I remember now is that there are a couple of episodes in the hopper, and we should check those out. We've got episode 203 and 204 just waiting for us. So let's take a look. So in episode 203, these are pull requests for episode guides for January 15th, episode 203. And we're just going to double check these before we merge them in. So I'm going to make sure that the video matches up. Episode 2003, January 15th, that's right. Make sure the agenda lines up. Nope, that's January 16th. Last updated January 5th. Did I get the date wrong? Is that what happened? Was it actually January 15th? That's probably what happened, is I got the date wrong. Whoa. That's happened more than once where like, did you see all that static? Where like something horribly has gone wrong, I think with either the capture card or my graphics card or something, but it's better now. let's hope that doesn't happen again. I'm just going to correct this date over here in the agenda, just for consistency's sake, for that episode. And then this looks good. Blog posts that Mike helped write. So I talked about the picture-in-picture feature. That blog post went out in the middle of January. Also, it reached the #1 on Hacker News a couple of days ago, which was interesting. I also documented how I use Mercurial, and then we went into some XPCOM shutdown thread stuff. And and then I mentioned I was away. So this all looks right. I'm going to merge this in. This looks great. Thank you very much, SmurfD. Thanks. So comment and merge pull request. Confirm the merge and add episode 203. And then the next thing is there's episode 204. So an episode. This has both. This has both. Let's select a commit. Just this one. So episode 204. January 22nd, 204. I keep saying 2000, but it's 200. It's too ambitious. A very what's the word I'm looking for? Ambitious to say 2000. It is the year 2020, but we're not at episode 2000 yet. This looks like the right agenda. And then that's what we were working on, pop-up blocking child. Yes, I reviewed some stuff for picture-in-picture, and I reviewed some patches for MyQ only. And then, the episode, I was like, Joy of Coding returns on February 12th. And I was right. Here we are, February 12th. So this looks great, too. Thank you very much. Always say thank you to your contributor. Thank you, SmurfD. And that's the episode guide, everybody. Hooray! Okay, another thing I wanted to bring up is that today I am not in IRC. I'm not in the live hacking IRC. And that's because Mozilla has started to transition away from IRC to a new chat protocol called Matrix. And we have our own home server set up, a Mozilla home server. And we haven't broadly announced this yet, but you can join it right now. If you're wanting to join the live hacking chat room, I highly recommend joining it. You can talk directly with me while I stream. You can ask questions after I stream. Who knows? I'm in there and you can check it out. So if you want to join us on Matrix, you can go to https://chat.mozilla.org. If you go to this address, I think it's chat.mozilla.org. Let me try opening that. Is that right? Yeah. So that will take you to this page, and then you can sign in using a GitHub account. I don't think we've made it so that you can use a Mozilla account yet, but you can sign in. Can you create no, you can't create an account. You have to sign in with single sign-on using either a Firefox account or a GitHub account or a Google account, and then you can sign in. Hooray! So come join us on Matrix. I am in the live hacking channel. There's actually a link. This is probably the better link, actually. This will connect you to the channel once you're logged in. So if you go here, it's this is the address to go to. If you wanna chat. You also don't need to use a client. You can just do it within your web browser. There's a web-based Riot client that you can use to connect to the Mozilla server. That's the other thing. Because we have Federation turned on now, if you are already using Matrix and you are already using Riot, you can connect to the Mozilla instance. Our instance is federated currently in the Fediverse, so you can find us in the list, I believe. And if you need the address of the server for some reason, it's here. It's mozilla.modular.im is the server name. Yeah, that's it. That's all I want to chat about. So come join us. I already see one person's in there. Hello, Andy. Nice to see you there. Welcome to the channel. And I will be, I guess, keeping an eye on the Twitch chat, but I'm hoping eventually to only have to pay attention to the Matrix chat. So maybe one day I'll figure out how to bridge the two. Right now we haven't started setting up bridges or anything like that. It's early days for Matrix at Mozilla, but we're figuring it out. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that I want to mention that there is an update to the pop-up blocking fission port that we were working on a couple episodes ago. It landed. Huzzah! So pop-up blocking works with fission enabled. Hello to both Andy K and who just Virus Killer who just joined. Virus Killer sounds intense. All right, let's get started. What do I actually want to work on today? I've been wasting enough time. Although I wouldn't say contributing to the episode guide is wasting time. It's not wasting time at all. But what do we want to work on today? So what I want to work on are some of the bugs under this meta bug. Investigate egregious startup times on Firefox desktop, and failing that, then filing bugs and maybe getting started on some investigations for this. This is a thing that I think we've chatted about a couple episodes ago, or like over a dozen episodes ago, about having a static about home, about new tab at startup, and I built a prototype and it worked really, really well. So I wanted to actually do that and maybe get started this quarter and do some inroads. I did this massive investigation, and we might make some headway there during one of these episodes. I'm not sure if it'll be today's episode, though, because I actually want to start with this one. This is a bug I've been saddled with that I haven't actually had the opportunity to spend much time on because I've been spending so much time on the investigation for About Home. So I'm shifting my attention to egregious startup times. Now, what do I mean by egregious startup times? So our telemetry is reporting startup times that are pretty awful at times. Like let's take a look together. So let's go to just telemetry.mozilla.org. Let's see what we can derive from this. This is the metric that we're going to look at, first paint. And we're going to look at the beta channel and the parent process on any operating system. And we're going to look at the, I can just go to the distribution. Let's look at the 95th percentile. Over 10 seconds. Over 10 seconds of startup time. So like, that means that like 95% of the startups happen down here, but like 5% of our users are experiencing like a pretty awful startup time. And I'm pretty sure since that's the max bucket, it could be like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds of startup time. And I want to know what that's all about. 25%, so the 75th percentile, or 25% of our users are experiencing at least around 6.8 seconds of startup time or longer. And that's pretty bad. So one of the things that we started to do is file bugs for things we found. And one of the things that we identified is that we have this thing called the slow startup notification bar. And it behaves rather strangely. For some users, it seems... So this is only kind of tangentially related, but it's the thing I was hoping to pursue during today's episode. So when you start up the browser, we take this measurement after the browser starts up between process start and when the first window painted. And we take like 5 samples. So after 5 startups, we sample that time interval between process start and the first window painted. And we check to see if that value is greater than 20 seconds. And if so, then we show a notification bar telling the user, whoa, startup is looking pretty slow. Maybe you want to refresh the browser. So that was a way that we were initially attempting to address some of these egregious startup times, is by offering the user the capability of refreshing the browser. Refreshing the browser could flip a bunch of prefs back and get rid of a bunch of janky add-ons. It vacuums the database, does all of these things that might actually improve startup times. But the problem is that sometimes that notification bar shows up incorrectly. And we also don't know when it shows up. We don't know how often it shows up for our users. And so there are 2 things I want to look at today. Sometimes the notification bar shows up incorrectly, even whenever startup was nice and fast. And I also wanted to add some telemetry on the slow startup notification bar, so some telemetry probes. So the first thing let's look at is this one. This is the slow startup notification bar can somehow get negative samples. This is a thing I found out yesterday having spoken to a user on Reddit. So the slow startup notification bar samples the time between process start and shortly after the delayed startup finish fires, like I said. And after 5 such samples, checks to see if the average time was over 20 seconds. And if so, a slow startup notification shows. In this Reddit post, a user reported that like the notification bar was showing up, but it takes less than 1 second to start from the Firefox, start the Firefox browser. So like that means that the notification bar, even if we were to add telemetry, the telemetry would be like all wrong, or there'd be noise in there because there are edge cases where it's not behaving properly. So I'd like to fix that. And I got some information from the user, and here's what I learned is that some of the samples that we're getting are like really weird. Like there's this massive negative number showing up in this this preference. So this is the preference that stores the average startup time. So you start up the browser. If you don't have any samples, then we store the startup time in here. And then the next time you start up, we take a look at that old startup time and we average the two out. We create an average, and then we say that there are 2 samples, and we keep doing that until we have 5 samples. Then we take the average of those 5 samples, and we see if they're over 20 seconds. And in this case, the average time is this wacky negative number. And I want to know what happens whenever we have this wacky negative number inside of the preferences for the slow startup notification. So let's start there. I'm going to pump up the font so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to make sure I have a build up and running. Okay, so I've got my build. I'm going to mock run this sort of fake profile here. And then I'm going to store inside, I'm going to store inside a browser.slowStartup. So average time was 0 to start. Let's actually, and we had 0 samples. Now what happens if I restart the browser? Let's restart the browser and see what I get now. So the last one was 1 second. Less than 2 seconds, it's 1.3 seconds. And we have 1 sample in here. Okay, so now what happens if I put in this massive negative number in here and say I have 5 samples? So now let's start up the browser. So interestingly, the notification bar does not appear. Slow startup. And it looks like, oh, and maybe it's because I had the max sample. So let's maybe set that to 4. We're going to set that to that negative number. Let's do this again. So maybe we overflowed. About config slow startup. Oh, it blanked it out again. How about 3? Let's give the exact values that this user who reported did. So actually slow samples, we're going to say 2 samples. Next sample's 5, 20 seconds. Yeah, all looks good. Notification disabled is false. So we're going to wipe that out, run. And now I'm going to do it again. Now I'm going to do it again. And it blanked out. That's really interesting. The notification bar never showed up for me. Let's take a look at the code that does the notification bar. Slow start. Oh, I actually think it's in browser glue. So what it'll do is it will calculate the time between now and the process start. And then what's the way that it chooses if the average time is greater than the time threshold? Oh, then there's this thing. Wait, profile age. If the profile is reset, consider the reset date for the age. 1 day. Return. Profile age. If profile age is less than 90, then we return. Okay, so I'm going to disable this part because it looks like it checks to see how old the profile is. And this profile in this test case is pretty young. So we have to pretend we're older now. So I'm going to disable that part. And I'm going to say, or whoops, sorry. Number of samples should be 2. We're going to shut down. We're going to build. Okay. 3, 4. Let's do one more. Now what happened? Let's start. So it blanked it out to 0, and we didn't get the notification bar. So I think what I want to do is I guess we would never have entered here because the average time is always going to be like, it's a negative number. Why would it evaluate true that the average time is greater than the time threshold? That's what is kind of suspect about all of this. Unless suddenly this overflowed greatly and flipped over so that it was like a positive number again, a humongous positive number. How does it do that? So average time, time samples. Like, let's say you take a really large JavaScript number. Let num equal that, and then n times 4, and then n times 5. Like, at what point do you n times 10? At what point do you flip over? It would take quite a few multiplications. Like, there's a lot of room in these negative numbers. We're just making up numbers here. Whoopsie daisy. This is a huge, huge space, a huge numeric space. I don't think it's like we accidentally like flipped over. So is there any other way this could suddenly have become a positive number in the case of the user, like a massive number? A negative. You've got a negative number here, you multiply it by something and add. Current time is going to be something really small. Or if it got negative before, maybe negative. So you have a negative number plus a positive or a negative number. There's no way that's going to be like a humongous number, is there? Unless what's date.now minus 0? Interesting. So if this, maybe, what if this returns 0 one time? Is that ever possible? Oh, sorry. So that returns a date. And what is that value? Get startup info process. Get startup info. Negative times a negative equals a positive, says Smurf D. Very good point. We do a multiplication here by samples, but samples is always going to be a stat. Like, samples is this number that we are slowly incrementing. It starts at 0. We only ever increment it, and when we write it, I think it will go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and then back to 0 again. So I don't think that's what's happening here. Negative times negative becoming positive. But good point. So get startup info. How does that work? We get the process creation time. And if for some reason it's null, then we say that the process creation time is timestamp process creation. Now what happened, there's this like error Boolean. Could this be going wrong? Is it ever possible that this goes wrong? Okay, process creation is inconsistent. We start by saying is inconsistent is false. We check to see if we were restarting. If we were restarting, use the first timestamp we've taken as the new process startup time. First timestamp. Okay. Otherwise, it's now. And then we subtract the process uptime. And if the process creation timestamp was inconsistent, replace it with the first one instead, and notify that a telemetry error was detected. If A is consistent, consistent is true, we say we become M first timestamp, and then we set that to be process creation. And then that's what we return. So what's this thing? First timestamp taken when the class static initializers are run. This timestamp is used to sanitize timestamps coming from different sources. All right. So right here, whenever we run timestamp initialization, which is like as soon as this thing's constructed right here, then we take now, take it to be now. What is a timestamp? Moments in time are a special null moment. We do not use the non-monotonic system clock or local time since they can be reset, causing apparent backward travel in time. We measure elapsed time according to the system. It might not advance while the system is sleeping. Timestamp set now is not called at all for hours a day. We might not notice the passage of time, some of that time. This is implemented as either a wraparound a high-resolution monotonic system clocks if they exist on this platform, or PR interval time. It's like a time point. So we'll use some like system calls maybe. System clock. So if for some reason if the timestamp is greater or uptime is 0, so it's possible for uptime to be 0. What happened here? So more or less at the beginning of shutdown, which as we know can take some time, which means process creation time ends up being completely wrong. This timestamp for process creation on a restart. That shutdown is in the way of the next startup. Store the time which was shut down. When restarting, instead of reading the new fake process start time from this environment variable code, now recomputes the process creation timestamp using the already present first available timestamp. Very short time to start, barely noticeable. I'm going to link this to the other bug. See also this. Setting these preferences locally. I wasn't able to recreate, I wasn't able to get the notification bar to display. Just because I can't figure, there's no code path that seems to get fooled by really negative numbers. The only thing I can think of is that the negative number somehow gets multiplied with another negative to become a large positive, but it's only multiplied by the sample counter, which looks like it should always be between be from 0 to 5 inclusive. Or 0 to 4 inclusive. Or the negative number might somehow become so negative that it wraps around and becomes positive, but JS numbers have a lot of room to go both negative and positive before this occurs. So I'm not sure. I'm not really confident that's what's happening. I think I'm going to prepare a special build of Firefox for. Do I want to prepare a special build of Firefox for this user? What do I want to do here? I've asked the user whether or not. Hang on, what is date.now computed from? Is date.now computed from the system clock? Is date.now influenced by system clock? Like, for example, here, date.now, new date, thinks it's 1:38 p.m. Now, if I change the time to Scooba-doop-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, is that right? No, Scooba-doop-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. If I change the time so that it is 12 again, and then date.now goes back. So I wonder if that's it. What if there's disagreement One thing that comes to mind is that date.now is influenced by the system clock, by the OS time. Whereas the timestamps used to calculate startup information come from actually, that's a really good question. Like, maybe, oh, I see some chat. Maybe you could try that beta, or are you on Nightly? Was also thinking, what if the process is killed and somehow the right time and some variable goes haywire? Or just a really slow PC, like someone building Firefox, have a few VMs running, try to fake Firefox in a VM. So SmurfD, the one interesting thing about this user who's reporting this is that they report that their machine is incredibly fast, that it's like a very powerful PC and that Firefox starts very quickly on it, which I thought was kind of interesting. But something comes to mind now. I want to test what happens if I'm going to start the browser. This test instance of the browser. I'm going to do service, startup, get startup info. So it says the startup info, process, 140. Okay, now I'm going to change the system clock again. To 1240 and restart. Wait, sorry, I didn't save. Yeah, now I've saved. Okay. Okay, so those times are influenced by the system clock. Those timestamps. Okay. So much for that theory. I thought maybe for some reason these timestamps wouldn't be influenced by the system clock. And if the user is on, like, they've got a machine where they're like, I guess it doesn't make a whole lot of sense though. So how would a computer know what the actual time is without touching the network? So somehow these like timestamps get turned into actual times. How's that done? Take the timestamp now. And somehow we convert them whenever we do get startup info. We go through, we get the event. Compute the absolute timestamp. If the stamp is greater than the time of process creation. Now what if the stamp's greater than process creation? What if the stamp is null? What if the process time is null? What happens then? And like we screw up getting it, or we screw up computing it. It doesn't look like it can happen, but like there's this check here that makes sure that timestamps to appear time and just NSF startup to cope. If not, stamp is not. Now let's look at the I'm going to show you a trick. Get startup info. So here's how you can follow some code in HGWeb and see where it comes from. I'm interested in this line, so I'm going to click on it. I'm going to say plus, and then hang on, how do I do this again? I want to like follow it. How do I? Yeah, follow the history of those lines. So no change there. Why would we have ever checked to see whether the stamp was null? Looks like we were doing it kind of before as well. If no process creation timestamp. Looks like this tried to land a couple of times. Here, if there's no process creation timestamp, why would really say? But they're making it more flexible, they say. Like Hami. Grrr. Oh, here, if no. Avoid obviously invalid process creation time. So that's the bug that I care about. That's why they were doing it. Telemetry occasionally reports negative startup numbers. This isn't consistent. Sometimes just one number is negative. Happens on all 3 platforms. All times for main first paying session start taken the same way. It seems unlikely to be any problem with that except for if our process startup time is taken with a different method. That could be a discrepancy in the clock's timers being involved system-wise or problem with the way we handle the process start time when restarting. So it was 9 years ago that just for some reason, telemetry occasionally reported negative numbers, and so that's why this chunk was added here, is to make sure that, like, we know that it's valid. Okay. So we know that sometimes it's invalid. Or sometimes the other counts were invalid. I think I want to know, that's what I'm going to ask this user next, is I want them to restart their browser and then run, I think what I'm going to do is ask the user to tell me what services.startup.getStartupInfo.process returns for them after a restart. Okay. Oh. So Heis had a comment. Based on such and such, average time can be negative if either samples or total time is negative, but we know samples isn't, so the average time, for average time to be negative, total time must be negative. Ignoring samples again, either current time must be negative or average time is already negative. So logically, current time must be negative at some point. When samples is 0 for startup, if date.now yields a lower number than the startup info, that could happen. It looks like we compute the startup number in complicated ways, so perhaps that's plausible. Looks like you know about this based on HG, annotate input, output around such and such. It does look like to me it's basically computing a normal date object from a high-res timestamp, which could be error-prone in all kinds of interesting ways. Could overflow to be negative. This could happen if the process number is 0 underscore. Oh, we divide. We divide. Oh. Well, we never divide by 0. Unless someone's been monkeying around with the samples pref, which I don't think is happening when we don't divide by 0. If the process number is, but if we have 0 divided by something, what is 0? What does JavaScript think 0 divided by 1 is? 0. Okay. 0 divided by infinity. What's it? Do I have infinity? Yeah, 0. Can overflow to be negative. Sample, services pref, set in prefs, test true. This could happen if the process number oh. Right, it's not necessarily just JavaScript where the numbers can overflow. It's what the preference, because we're storing it in preferences, how big are the integers that can go into the preferences database? That's an interesting question. I can test that right now. Services, prefs, set int pref, test.foo. Let's say, yeah, minus 1 million. How many zeros? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's minus 10 million. Services, prefs, get int pref, test.foo. Okay, 10 million. So we're going to set it now 100 million. Okay. billion. 10 billion. Things are going screwy now. 100 billion. Trillion. Now we're in the positives. Interesting. So what did it take for us to store? It's like something less than this. Like, okay, something like, no, 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 something in there. Okay. Yeah. Oh. Interesting. So some sufficiently negative number. That's interesting. What if we? This is basic number theory here, people. Basic storage of numbers in preferences database. I think it's like, what's the value? It's like a assigned int 32. Is that a 32-bit integer, or is it int 16? Let's see if we can figure out the int 32. Integer max value in Java. So, like, if I store this and get it back, and then I store the next one, get it back, and it wraps around. That's what happened. Okay. That's what's going on, I suspect. Or like, you get a sufficiently negative number. So presumably it works in the same direction. Now, like that. Oh. Then it goes positive. Okay. Okay. Very interesting. So it's not so much, just to summarize, the fact that it's going through the preferences database is what's causing us to like cast the value to an int32. Whereas in JavaScript, you have like way bigger numbers. JavaScript numbers can be humongously large, humongously small, but because it goes through preferences, it gets downcast to an int32, which has this property where it can wrap around. That's a very good observation from Gijs here. So I'm actually just going to throw away my comment. And we're going to wait to hear back from Gabriel Svelto. That sounds like a good plan. All right. The next thing I want to do then is to take a look at telemetry on the slow startup notification bar. We've got like half an hour or so. Let's see what we can do. So telemetry, what are the questions I want to ask? Let me first create a note for this one. And we start putting a plan together, and we start writing a patch. Okay, the things to be measured. Is the user profile configured to display the slow startup notification bar? Has the notification bar been displayed in the current session? What was the user's interaction with the notification bar, if anything? Did they click through the Sumo page? Did they dismiss it? And then recall a caveat: the scalars are cleared once they're sent, so you'll find them in exactly one of session's pings, not all of them. Oh. one of the pings, not all of them. That's fine. The value of browser slow start average time. Okay. This is what we want to gather. So whenever you're collecting telemetry like this, we're using what are called scalars. Scalars are... oh, I'm just also going to clear that pref that's just hanging around now in my database. Clear user pref. There. Doesn't exist. Good. We're going to revert all this stuff. We're going to open up scalars.yaml. Preferences, where's a good place for this stuff? Sandbox, data sanitization, content blocking, password manager, security. Theme, browser engagement. I'm going to add one that's like browser.startup. Browser usage. Slow startup notification. Slow startup notified. So that's when one will be called. Maybe slow startup notification enabled. Slow startup notified. What's the other one? And then interaction. Wonder if that should be an event or not. Kind. What can the kinds be? Can they be like enums? Slow startup notification enabled, slow startup notified. Average time. So to do. What to do with the user actions on the notification bar. Slow startup notification bar. Are those events? Okay, so this one will be, we'll say bug numbers. We're going to give this bug number. Apparently you do it like that. Description. Whether the slow startup notification bar is enabled for the user. Do we actually need that? I mean, that's going to be on by default, and there's no way of turning it off unless... What is the slow startup notification bar? Does it, like... Is there a button that's like, never tell me again? Disable notification. Aha! Then we turn it off. Okay, then we do want to know. Is enabled for the user. Expires... I don't know. When's a good time to expire? Nightly right now is 75. So let's choose 3 releases. 78. Kind Boolean. Notification emails. Conley. That's my email address. Products. Firefox. Record in processes. Main. Okay, so there's one. Our has been shown to the user during this session, during this ping. This whether the slow start notification bar was shown to the user during this session, I guess. And then average time, that's going to be an int. Unsigned int. I actually want it to be signed. Average time. The average start time computed by the slow startup notification bar. Spires 78. This is intentionally assigned integer because we want to capture cases. We want to record cases where we've erroneously calculated a negative startup time, which we've observed in the wild. So kind int, kind, what kinds are there? uint, string, uint, uint. Are there any other kinds? Can I just say like int? Presumably. Scalars. Let's look for the documentation. Data, Firefox, source docs, scalars. Type, kind, required. One of the scalar types, NSI telemetry scalar type. Okay. Wait, the YouTube stream isn't up? I thought for sure it was up. I tested it earlier. What? YouTube. I am streaming to YouTube right now. I'm live on YouTube. Apparently. The YouTube stream is up. So, Aaron, it's up. Just so you know. And if you're not sure where to go, drop a question in the live hacking channel, and here, like I'll show you. Here, check it out. Live, green light. Here I am. I am live. Episode 205. It's happening. Strangeness. All right. So we're looking for the scalar types. Scalar type count string boolean. What? Count. So I can't actually store a negative number. That's no good. It's no good. Can't use a scalar then. Oh, of course, scalars are never negative numbers. Ah, geez. All right. So let me ask Chetna a question. So one of the things we might want to record is whether or not... So one of the things we might want to record is the computed average time that the slow startup notification is using to decide whether or not to display itself. At least according to this bug, where is it? According to bug such and such, it's sometimes possible that this value is negative. I suspect we cannot record negative values via scalars. Is there a good way to record a negative value? What is the preferred way? Record a negative value. Also, for recording whether or not, recording what action the user took on the notification bar. For example, did they click on the refresh Firefox button, or the dismiss button, or the is it the don't show me this again, or the X button on the notification bar, or none of the above? Is it better to use events? Request information from Chetan. That seems like a better fit for that sort of thing, but are there is it better to use events, or is right? That's probably enough for that question. Huh. It does. So the live hacking. Wait. So there's one person watching me live. People in Twitch are saying, or people in the live hacking channel are saying that I'm not live. That's crazy. Let's find out. Mike Conley, Toronto. Did I somehow forget to schedule? No, I scheduled a live. I'm sorry, folks. I am streaming, but I guess it's just not happening. Scheduled for today. Oh, privacy is unlisted. Shoot, that's why. Public. There. What happened? Why was that set for non-public? Let me now try it. Now try it. Reload the page. There. You should see it now. I apologize. What a kerfuffle. It was set to non-public, and I don't know why that would be, because that's definitely not the normal state of affairs. My bad. Sorry, folks. All right, so we've need infoed here. We need infoed in the other bug. What are we actually going to do today? Because we've just been doing a lot of exploring, but we haven't actually written any patches. I think I got review on this thing just now, so maybe we can land it. Why not just include this as part of D60416? The stack will lando together, but will show up as separate commits where the first commit would fail. Tests without this fix. All right. I'll say like, all right. I'll roll these together and say that, and add you as the secondary I'll roll these together. Thanks. I'm gonna roll it together. All right. So update telemetry feed. This patch right here. Wait, what? There it is. Except not. All right. I've got all these uncommitted changes. I'm gonna have to bail on these like probes that I wanted to add while I wait for more information. So I'm just gonna shelve them. I'm gonna switch over to like trying to land this other patch to fix some other telemetry that we record on startup. Basically, there's a lot of work going underway to make sure that what we record for startup is the right stuff. So that's why it's all kind of related. So I'm going to pull this down. So I guess I should add that to my checklist for YouTube, is to make sure that it's public. It's never been a problem before, but c'est la vie. Bringing down some revisions. Okay. I'm going to roll these together. Or I'm actually going to fold them. Because I want to update the commit message. All right, so I'm going to say don't record that. That was reviewed by Kate Hudson. The test fix was reviewed by Ed Lee. Mardak. What's Mardak's email address? Change, and then that change was rolled into this commit. Okay. There we go. Fold them together. So let's take a look. Right, so we're gonna take a look at the tree. Or a MozFab submit tip. It is warm in this room. I'm also getting really tired, I can tell. It's been a while since I've done the live streaming. I don't know if you've ever live streamed before or like done live hacking, but it takes like muscle to think and speak out loud. Not like, I don't feel like I've been running a marathon or anything or been doing crunches, but like my brain feels like it's really being worked. It's an exercise that like, this happens every time I take a bit of a break from live hacking or live streaming, where the ability to think and speak around the same time and to, I guess, extemporaneously construct, a narrative that is at least somewhat coherent, takes muscle. or brain muscle or something, and that brain muscle goes away if you don't use it. And I can feel that that muscle is starting to get fatigued. So I might wrap up shortly. I apologize. This wasn't very much a patch righty kind of stream today. This was more of an exploration stream. But I learned some stuff. So this is what's going to land. All right. And the other one I'm going to mark as obsolete. I'm going to abandon it. So we're going to view the stack. Lando. Yep, and yep, land ho. Maybe what I'll do actually in the remaining time is I'll do a review. Got 2 reviews in my queue. Yeah, I'm gonna review this patch. So in this patch, Emma Males is trying to get rid of a custom lazy idle thread inside of our download platform code that's used specifically on Mac OS, and to use the low priority background thread instead. I remember adding the lazy idle thread back in the day, but now that we have the low priority background thread, we don't need it anymore. So let's take a look. At what I did. I made it so that like I added an NSI thread, and I created this MIO thread in the download platform. Oh, okay, hold up. We can just get rid of that constructor then, I think. So ReviewBot is correct. We can just get rid of this constructor entirely now. Since this member is no longer being used, we can get rid of it inside of the download platform.h header, and also I think that means we can drop the import, the include NSI thread.h include. .h include thread utils lazy idle thread. Dispatch to background thread. Yeah, that's right. That's good stuff. This looks great, thanks. Email is just a few small things, but this this looks like it's on the right track. Quest changes. Right. Was there anything else that needed to be done here? I think that's it. Like, it's really, really simple. There's this one time that we dispatch this job to this other thread. Yeah, and we dispatch the download done with resolve. Yeah. We can reject it at this point. The problem is going to remain pending limbo until its global goes away. All right. Debug only. We assert. So for... Right. Okay. Feel pretty confident about that review. I think I'm going to cap it here. Although next week, maybe we'll take a deeper dive into some of this about home stuff, or maybe there'll be some more actionable things we can do about the egregious slow startup. The thing about egregious slow startup is that we're at the point where we're doing a lot of data collection, and so there's a lot of telemetry probe landing and data analysis. And I wish I could do like the telemetry data analysis, like the deep dive telemetry data analysis here live on the stream, but I can't because that involves me like I'm doing like SQL queries on telemetry probe data, and that is heavily anonymized stuff, but I still would not be comfortable. Like there's a reason why that stuff is hidden behind an employee only barrier or a staff only barrier. It's like we're really, really paranoid about accidentally leaking user data. So even though this user data has been like heavily anonymized, we don't want to leak any of it out for any reason whatsoever. So that's why I'm not able to do it here on the live stream. But once I've done enough of that, hopefully I will have actionable information with which to actually we can write some patches together. So if there's that, and then the other thing is the about home stuff that maybe we can start looking at next week, depending on where I am with the egregious slow startup stuff. Like the static about home plan, I've started to put together diagrams on how I think it can be architected. This is kind of how I think it can be architected. And I've started to break it down into these individual milestones. So I'm going to start getting bugs filed. I'm actually in the midst of getting bugs filed for each of them. So maybe we can actually get started working on that next week. But I'm going to cap it here. My throat's starting to get sore. I can feel my brain starting to slide out of my mouth. So I'm going to stop here. Thank you so much for watching The Joy of Coding. I apologize for the people who prefer YouTube, that the stream was not available live on YouTube. I don't know what happened. I will add, it was the one time that, the restreamer, the repeater that I use to multicast to Twitch and YouTube and Air Mozilla, it was working properly. That's usually the point of failure. And today it worked properly. It was that YouTube just didn't know that I wanted to publicly stream. And I don't know why, but that's what happened. But I'm going to call it here. Thank you so much for watching episode 205 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was at least somewhat interesting. And I will see you again next week. And if there's anything else I want to mention, come join us in the Matrix channel. There are a couple of us now. Smurf D's in here. I saw, Andy and someone else. Virus Killer joined up. Come join us in the live hacking Matrix channel. That's where all the cool kids are hanging out. And you can ask questions and interact. So I'd love to have you there. And with that, I'm going to call it. So transitioning now to this, and I need to seriously iron this. I think I need to iron this thing, or I need to adjust the green screen settings. But without further ado, have yourself a great week. I hope you are doing well, and stay warm if you're in the northern hemisphere, and stay cool if you're in the southern hemisphere. And I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.